The rain came down hard that Tuesday afternoon, turning the sidewalk into a mirror of gray clouds and passing headlights. Lily sat with her back against the brick wall of Romano's cafe, trying to make herself as small as possible. She pulled her thin jacket tighter, but it didn't help much. The cold had already soaked through to her bones. She was 14 years old, though people often thought she looked younger. Maybe it was because she was so thin now, or maybe it was the way she sat so quietly, like she was trying not to take up space in the world. Through the large window beside her, she could see families eating dinner. Steam rose from bowls of pasta. A little boy laughed at something his father said. A waitress carried a tray loaded with plates, and the smell of garlic bread drifted out every time someone opened the door. Lily's stomach made a sound like an angry animal. She pressed her hand against it, embarrassed even though nobody was paying attention to her. It had been like this for 3 days now. 3 days of nothing but half a granola bar and some crackers she'd found in her backpack from before. She wasn't out here because she wanted to be. Her mom was working the evening shift at the hospital, the third double shift this week. Then she'd go straight to her morning job at the grocery store. Lily knew her mom was doing everything she could. That's exactly why Lily couldn't tell her how bad things had gotten. The apartment was so cold now that their breath made fog in the air. The electricity had been shut off 4 days ago. Her mom thought Lily was staying at a friend's house tonight, but that was a lie. Lily didn't want to burden anyone with her problems. She'd rather sit out here in the rain than watch her mom's face crumple with worry and guilt. In her backpack, wrapped in an old t-shirt for protection, was the only thing that really mattered to her anymore. She didn't think about it too much because thinking about it made her chest hurt. But sometimes on nights like this, her fingers would move on their own. They'd tap against her knees in patterns only she understood, playing songs nobody else could hear. A couple walked past her, holding hands under an umbrella. They didn't look down. Most people didn't. Lily had learned that if you stayed still enough and quiet enough, you could become almost invisible. Sometimes that felt safer. Sometimes it felt like the loneliest thing in the world. She'd been sitting outside this cafe for almost 2 hours now. She told herself she'd leave soon, but her legs felt too tired to move. The awning above gave her a little shelter from the rain, at least. That was something. The door opened again and an older man in a white apron stepped out carrying 2 bags of trash. He was probably in his 50s with gray hair and strong arms. He headed toward the dumpster in the alley, then stopped. He'd seen her. Lily held her breath. Please don't yell at me to leave, she thought. Please don't call someone to make me move. But the man didn't yell. He stood there for a moment, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Then he walked to the dumpster, tossed the bags in, and came back. He stopped a few feet away, not too close, like he understood that getting too close might scare her. You okay? He asked. His voice was gentle, not demanding. Lily nodded quickly. Yes, sir. I'm fine. I'm waiting for someone. It was the lie she'd practiced, the one that usually made adults leave her alone. But this man's eyes were kind and sad at the same time. He didn't look like he believed her. How long have you been out here? Not long, she said, which was technically true if you didn't count the 2 hours. He rubbed his chin, thinking. The rain kept falling and a car drove by, splashing water onto the curb. He looked back at the cafe, then at her again. Listen, I'm the manager here, Tony Romano. My grandfather started this place about 40 years ago. He paused. We're pretty busy tonight and I could use some help. Nothing complicated, just sweeping up, maybe wiping down some tables. Takes about an hour. I can pay you with dinner. A real dinner, hot food, whatever you want from the menu. What do you say? Lily's first instinct was to say no. She didn't want charity. She didn't want pity. But her stomach chose that exact moment to growl so loud that even Tony heard it. Her face burned with shame. It's not charity, he said quickly, like he could read her mind. I really do need help. My usual guy called in sick and we're slammed. You'd actually be doing me a favor. Something in the way he said it made Lily look up and meet his eyes. There was no pity there. Just a kind man offering a fair trade, work for food. Her dad used to say that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. The memory made her throat tight. Okay, she whispered. I can help. Tony smiled, the kind of smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Great, come on in out of this rain. The warmth hit her the moment she stepped inside. It was so sudden and so wonderful that she almost gasped. The cafe was full of noise and life. Families talking and laughing, silverware clinking against plates, music playing softly from speakers in the ceiling. the smell of tomato sauce and fresh bread and coffee all mixed together. Tony led her to a small room in the back where there was a sink. He handed her a towel. Dry off a bit. There's a clean t-shirt in that cabinet if you want to change out of that wet jacket. I'll get you a broom. When he left, Lily stood there for a moment, just breathing, just being warm. She looked at herself in the small mirror above the sink. Her hair was plastered to her head. Her lips looked almost blue. Dark circles hung under her eyes like bruises. She looked away quickly. She dried off and changed into the t-shirt. It was way too big, but it was dry and warm. That was all that mattered. Tony came back with a broom and a smile. Okay, just sweep the main floor. Take your time. And when you're done, you tell me what you want to eat. Sky's the limit. Lily took the broom and got to work. She swept slowly and carefully, making sure to get every crumb, every bit of dirt. She wanted to do a good job. She wanted to earn this meal. As she worked, she tried not to look at the small stage at the back of the cafe, but her eyes kept drifting over anyway. There was a beautiful black piano there, sitting under soft lights. Her fingers tingled just looking at it. She turned away quickly, focusing on her sweeping. Some things were too painful to think about. Some dreams had to stay buried, no matter how much they called to you in the quiet moments. She had no idea that everything was about to change, that in less than an hour that piano would change her life forever. That being hungry and desperate and brave enough to accept help would lead to the most important moment of her entire life. For now, she just swept the floor and tried to remember the last time she'd felt warm. Lily finished sweeping the main floor in about 40 minutes. She'd been thorough, getting under every table and around every chair leg. Tony came over with that same warm smile and nodded his approval. Good work. Really good. Now what can I get you to eat? Lily looked at the menu board behind the counter. Everything sounded amazing, but she didn't want to pick something too expensive. Maybe just soup? She said quietly. Tony shook his head. You did a full hour of work. You get a full meal. How about the chicken parmesan with spaghetti? It's my grandmother's recipe. Best thing on the menu. Lily's eyes went wide. She hadn't had a real meal like that in so long she'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Are you sure? I'm positive. Go sit anywhere you want. I'll bring it out. She chose a small table in the corner, somewhere she could watch the room but stay out of the way. The chair felt soft under her. The table had a clean red and white checkered cloth on it. There was even a little candle in a glass holder, though it wasn't lit. While she waited, she let herself look around properly. There were families everywhere. An elderly couple sharing a pizza, a group of teenagers celebrating something, maybe a birthday, a tired-looking woman about her mom's age eating alone while reading a book. Normal people doing normal things. Lily wondered what that felt like. To just sit in a warm restaurant without counting every dollar or worrying about where you'd sleep tonight. Her eyes kept drifting back to that piano on the stage. It sat there like it was waiting for something. The wood gleamed under the stage lights, so perfectly black and shiny. She could see herself reflected in it from here, just a tiny ghost of a girl in an oversized t-shirt. Tony brought out her food on a big white plate, and Lily actually felt tears prick her eyes. The chicken was golden and covered in melted cheese and red sauce. The spaghetti was piled high and steaming. There was even garlic bread on the side. Take your time, Tony said. Enjoy it, she did. She ate slowly, savoring every single bite. The flavors exploded in her mouth, warm and rich and real. She hadn't realized how much she missed food that actually tasted like something. For the past few months, meals had been about survival, about filling the empty space in her stomach with whatever was cheap or free. This was different. This was food made with care, with love. She was halfway through when she noticed the commotion near the stage. 3 men and a woman had arrived, all carrying instrument cases. They were setting up microphones and music stands, talking and laughing with each other. The woman had a saxophone. 2 of the men had guitars. And the third man, who looked to be in his 60s with silver hair pulled back in a ponytail, kept checking his watch and looking toward the door. Tony walked over to them, and Lily could hear bits of their conversation from her corner. He's still not answering his phone, the silver-haired man was saying. He sounded frustrated and worried at the same time. We're supposed to start in 20 minutes. Maybe he's stuck in traffic? The woman suggested. That rain is pretty bad, he would have called. Something's wrong. The man ran his hand through his hair. We can't do the set without a piano player. Half our songs need keys. Lily's fingers had stopped moving her fork. She was listening now, really listening. A piano player hadn't shown up. They needed someone to play. No, she told herself. Don't even think about it. You haven't played a real piano in 2 years. You'd probably mess up. You'd embarrass yourself. Just finish your food and leave. But her fingers were already moving against the edge of the table. Tap, tap, tap. The opening notes to her favorite song, the one her dad had taught her when she was 7. She didn't even realize she was doing it until she looked down and saw her hands moving in that old familiar pattern. The silver-haired man was talking to Tony now. I'm sorry, we might have to cancel tonight. I know you were counting on us for the crowd. It's okay, Mr. Chen, these things happen. Tony looked genuinely disappointed, though. Tuesday nights were jazz nights, and people came specifically for it. Lily's heart was pounding. There was a war happening inside her chest. Part of her wanted to sink lower in her chair and become invisible again. But another part, a part she thought had died 2 years ago, was screaming at her to stand up, to speak, to take this chance. Before she could stop herself, she was on her feet. Her legs felt shaky, but they carried her forward anyway. She walked toward the stage, toward Tony and the musicians, and her voice came out smaller than she wanted, but it came out. Excuse me. They all turned to look at her. This tiny girl in an oversized t-shirt and worn-out jeans standing there with her hands clasped together. Yes, sweetie? Mr. Chen said kindly. Lily's mouth was dry. She could feel everyone's eyes on her. I heard you say you need a piano player. Mr. Chen's expression softened into something like sympathy. Oh, that's sweet of you. But we need someone who can play pretty advanced jazz pieces. It's complicated music. I can play, Lily said, and her voice was a little stronger now. I used to play. I haven't practiced on a real piano in a while. But I still practice every day in my head, and I remember everything my dad taught me. And I know I'm just a kid, but I can... She was rambling. She stopped herself, feeling heat rush to her face. Mr. Chen exchanged glances with the other musicians. The woman with the saxophone had a skeptical look on her face. One of the guitar players was trying not to smile, like he thought this was cute but pointless. But Mr. Chen looked at her differently. He looked at her the way her dad used to look at her when she was learning a new piece. Like he was really seeing her, not just a hungry kid in oversized clothes. What's your name? He asked. Lily. Lily, I'm David Chen. I teach music at the conservatory downtown. He paused. Can you read sheet music? Yes, sir. My dad taught me when I was 4. And you said you practice every day? Without a piano? Lily nodded. I have a paper keyboard I made. I practice on that. I know it sounds weird, but I do all the songs in my head with my fingers. I remember where all the notes are. Something changed in David's expression. The skepticism faded, replaced by curiosity. A paper keyboard, he repeated. That's remarkable dedication. Tony spoke up then. The kid did a great job sweeping my floor, thorough, careful, maybe give her a chance. David looked at the piano, then back at Lily. She could see him calculating something, weighing options. They had 20 minutes until they were supposed to start. No other piano player was coming. What did they have to lose? All right, he said finally. Come here. Let me see what you can do. Lily's heart jumped into her throat. This was really happening. David walked her over to the piano and sat down on the bench, patting the space next to him. Do you know any jazz standards? Autumn Leaves? Take 5. Lily shook her head. My dad mostly taught me classical. Chopin, Mozart, Bach. Some modern stuff too, but not really jazz. David nodded slowly. Okay, can you play something for me? Anything you remember. Lily slid onto the bench. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time. The piano was so much bigger than she remembered, so real. Her hands hovered over the keys and she could feel them calling to her like old friends she hadn't seen in forever. Take your time, David said gently. Lily closed her eyes. She thought of her dad. She thought of all those nights practicing on paper, keeping the music alive in her mind and her fingers. She thought about how much she'd lost and how much she'd survived. Then she pressed down on the first key and everything else disappeared. The first note rang out clear and pure. Lily's finger had found middle C like it had never left, like the 2 years of silence had never happened. She pressed down on the next note, then the next, and suddenly her hands were moving across the keys like water flowing downstream. She started with something simple, a Mozart piece her dad had taught her when she was 8, Sonata number 16 in C major. Most people knew it, that bright and cheerful melody that sounded almost like a music box. Her fingers remembered every single note. The cafe had been noisy just seconds ago. People talking, dishes clattering, the hiss of the espresso machine. But now it was getting quieter. Heads were turning. Conversations were stopping mid-sentence. Lily didn't notice. Her eyes were still closed. She was somewhere else now. Somewhere that wasn't a cafe or a cold apartment or a rainy sidewalk. She was in her old living room, sitting next to her dad on their piano bench. She could almost smell his cologne. Almost hear his voice saying, "That's it, baby girl. Feel the music, don't just play it." The Mozart piece ended, and without thinking, without planning, Lily's hands shifted into something else. Something harder. Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu. It was one of the most difficult pieces in classical piano, the kind of thing that made even advanced players nervous. The notes came so fast they almost blurred together, the left hand and right hand playing completely different rhythms at the same time. But Lily's fingers flew. They danced across the black and white keys like they'd been doing this every single day, which in a way they had. On her paper keyboard, in her mind, in her dreams. The music had never left her. It had just been waiting. David Chen sat frozen on the bench beside her. His mouth had fallen open. He'd been teaching music for 40 years. He'd heard thousands of students play. He'd performed in concert halls across the country. And this thin, hungry girl in borrowed clothes was playing Chopin like she'd been born to do it. The woman with the saxophone had put down her instrument. The guitar players had stopped tuning their strings. Tony stood behind the counter with a dish towel in his hands, completely still. Every single person in the cafe was watching now, listening. The notes cascaded and swirled. Chopin had written this piece to sound like a conversation between two voices, one gentle and singing, the other rushing and urgent. Lily made both voices come alive. Her hands moved so fast they were almost a blur, but every single note was crystal clear, perfectly timed, absolutely precise. Then came the middle section, the part that always made people cry. The tempo slowed down and the melody became sweet and heartbreaking. This was the part her dad had loved most. He'd always close his eyes during this section when Lily played it. "That's the sound of remembering something beautiful," he'd told her once. "Something you had and lost." Lily felt the tears on her cheeks, but she kept playing. Her fingers never stumbled, never hesitated. They knew this music better than they knew anything else in the world. This was home. This was the only place she still had her dad. The piece built back up to that impossible speed, the notes tumbling over each other like a waterfall, and then with a final flourish it ended. The last chord hung in the air like a question. For 3 seconds there was absolute silence. Then the cafe exploded. People were on their feet, clapping and shouting. The elderly couple was applauding so hard their hands must have hurt. The teenagers were whistling and cheering. Even the tired woman who'd been reading alone was wiping her eyes and clapping. The sound was overwhelming, like a wave crashing over everything. Lily opened her eyes and almost jumped. She'd forgotten where she was. She'd forgotten all these people were here. Reality came rushing back all at once, and suddenly she felt very small and very exposed. David Chen was staring at her like she was a ghost. "How long did you say you've been playing?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Since I was 4, Lily said. Her own voice sounded strange in her ears. "My dad was a teacher. He taught piano." Was? David caught that word immediately. Lily looked down at the keys. "He died 2 years ago." "Say, our accident. We lost our apartment after that. Lost our piano too." She touched the keys gently like they might disappear. "This is the first real piano I've played since then." David sat back and Lily could see him processing this information. His eyes were shining with something that looked like wonder mixed with sadness. "You've been practicing on paper for 2 years?" She nodded. "I made a keyboard out of cardboard. Drew all the keys with marker. It's not the same, but I didn't want to forget. I couldn't let myself forget." One of the guitar players had moved closer. He was a younger guy, maybe in his 30s, with kind eyes. "That was Chopin's Fantaisie Impromptu," he said, like he still couldn't believe it. "That's a grade 8 piece. That's conservatory level." "Beyond conservatory level," David corrected quietly. "That's professional level. Competition level." He turned to look at Lily fully. "How old are you?" 14. David ran his hand over his face. Lily couldn't tell what he was thinking. Was he angry? Had she done something wrong? Maybe she shouldn't have played something so complicated. Maybe he thought she was showing off. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to—" "Don't apologize." David's voice was firm but gentle. "Lily, do you understand what I just watched? Do you have any idea how extraordinary that was?" Lily shook her head. She'd been playing piano for so long it felt normal to her. Special, yes, and important, but normal. "I teach at one of the best music schools in the state," David said. "We have students who practice 8 hours a day on real pianos with private instructors. And maybe 1 or 2 of them could play what you just played with that level of skill." He paused. "And you did it after 2 years of playing on paper? After 2 years of having nothing?" Most people would have given up. Most people would have let it go. "I couldn't let it go," Lily said simply. "It's all I have left of him." The cafe was still buzzing. People were talking excitedly, looking over at the stage. Someone had their phone out, and Lily realized with a jolt that they might have been recording. The thought made her stomach flip. Tony came over and his eyes were wet. "Kid, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in this restaurant. And we've had some good musicians come through here." David stood up from the bench and pulled Lily gently to her feet. "Listen to me very carefully. I teach at Riverside Conservatory. We have scholarship programs for exceptional students. I want you to audition." Lily's heart stopped. "A scholarship? But those are for— I'm not—" "You absolutely are," David said firmly. "I've been teaching for 40 years and I've never heard anyone play like that. Especially not someone who's been practicing on paper." He pulled out his wallet and handed her a business card. "This has my number and email. I want you to contact me. We need to get you into a proper program. We need to get you training on a real piano." Lily took the card with shaking hands. She stared at it like it might vanish. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Tony chimed in. "Say you'll call him." But Lily was thinking about her mom, about their cold apartment with no electricity, about how they could barely afford food. "A conservatory costs money," she said quietly. "Even with a scholarship there are fees and books and things. We can't afford that." David crouched down so he was at her eye level. "Let me worry about that. I have connections. I know people who help talented students who need support. But first I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you won't give up on this. Promise me you'll keep playing even if it's on that paper keyboard." His voice was intense now, urgent. "Talent like yours doesn't come along often. The world needs to hear you play. Your father gave you an incredible gift. Don't let it die." Lily felt the tears coming back. She nodded, not trusting her voice to work. David smiled. "Good. Now, we have a show to put on and I think the audience would love to hear more from you. What do you say? Want to play a couple more songs?" Lily looked out at the cafe full of people. They were all watching her with warm eyes and encouraging smiles. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. She felt like maybe, just maybe, everything might be okay. "Okay," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, I'd like that." She sat back down at the piano, and when her fingers touched the keys again, it felt like coming home. Lily played 3 more songs that night. Each one felt like unlocking a door she'd kept closed for too long. The cafe crowd didn't leave. In fact, more people came in from the street when they heard the music. They stood in the doorway with wet umbrellas, drawn in by something they couldn't quite explain. Between songs, David would lean over and quietly ask her what she wanted to play next. He'd given up trying to lead. This was her moment, and he knew enough to step back and let it happen. For her final song, Lily chose something different, not a famous classical piece that everyone would recognize. Instead, she played something her dad had written. He'd never published it, never even named it. It was just something he'd play on quiet Sunday mornings when Lily was little, when the sunlight came through their kitchen window and made everything feel safe and warm. She'd never played it for anyone else before. It felt private, like sharing a secret, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like the kind of night where keeping secrets didn't make sense anymore. The melody was simple but beautiful. It rose and fell like breathing, like the gentle rhythm of someone sleeping peacefully. Her dad had told her once that he'd written it the day she was born, sitting in the hospital room while she and her mom slept. "You were both so peaceful," he'd said. "I wanted to remember that feeling forever." As Lily played it now, she realized something. Her dad had found a way to make the feeling last forever. It was right here in these notes. Every time she played this song, he was alive again. Not gone, not lost. just transformed into something that could never be taken away. When the last note faded, the cafe was silent again. But this time it was a different kind of silence. The kind that happens when people don't want to break something beautiful with noise. Then Tony started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Everyone joined in, and the sound filled the space like a warm embrace. Lily stood up from the piano and felt her legs shake. The adrenaline was wearing off now, and reality was settling back in. She'd just played in front of all these people. She'd shared her music, her dad's music, with strangers, and they'd loved it. David stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. That last piece. Did your father write that? Yes, Lily said softly. He wrote it for me and my mom. It was extraordinary. David's voice was thick with emotion. He would be so proud of you. You know that, right? Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. If she started crying now, she might not stop. Tony came over with an envelope in his hand. This is for you, he said, pressing it into Lily's palm. She opened it and found cash inside. $200 and $20 bills. Her eyes went wide. I can't take this. You already gave me dinner. It's not from me, Tony said with a smile. Well, some of it is. But after your first song, people started asking if they could tip you. That's what they gave. You earned it, kid. Fair and square. Lily stared at the money. $200. That could pay for the electricity to be turned back on. That could buy groceries for 2 weeks. That could mean her mom wouldn't have to work quite so many double shifts this month. The relief that washed over her was so strong it almost knocked her over. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. David was writing something on a piece of paper. This is my personal cell phone number. I want you to call me tomorrow. We need to talk about next steps. The conservatory has auditions coming up in 3 weeks, and I want to make sure you're ready. 3 weeks? Lily felt panic flutter in her chest. That's so soon. You're ready now, David said firmly. But we should still meet. Go over what to expect, maybe polish up your audition pieces. Do you have a way to practice? Access to a piano? Lily's face fell. No, just my paper one. David frowned, thinking hard. Then his face brightened. The community center 3 blocks from here has a piano in their rec room. I know the director. Let me make a call. I think I can get you access to practice there a few hours a day. Really? Lily could hardly believe it. A real piano. Every day, really. I'll text you the details tomorrow after I talk to them. David smiled. Lily, I need you to understand something. What you have is rare. Not just the technical skill, though that's impressive. It's the emotion. The way you make people feel when you play. That can't be taught. Either you have it or you don't, and you have it. One of the cafe customers came over then, a woman maybe in her 40s with kind eyes. Excuse me, honey. I just wanted to say that was the most beautiful music I've ever heard. I recorded part of it on my phone. I hope that's okay. Lily's stomach dropped. You recorded it? Just the last song. The one that felt so personal. It was too beautiful not to capture. The woman smiled apologetically. I won't post it anywhere if you don't want me to. I just wanted to be able to listen to it again. Lily didn't know what to say. Part of her felt exposed, like someone had taken something private. But another part of her thought about what her dad used to say. Music isn't meant to be locked away. It's meant to be shared. It's okay, Lily said finally. You can keep it. The woman beamed. Thank you. You have a real gift. Don't ever stop playing. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, going back to their meals and conversations, Lily stood by the piano feeling like she was in a dream. Just 3 hours ago, she'd been sitting outside in the rain, hungry and cold and alone. Now she had money in her pocket, a chance at a real scholarship, and a way to practice on a real piano. Tony brought her a to-go container. Extra spaghetti and some bread. For later or for tomorrow, whatever you need. The kindness was almost too much. Lily felt her throat get tight again. Why are you all being so nice to me? Tony's expression softened. Because you're a kid who deserves kindness. And because you gave us all something beautiful tonight. Let us give something back. David checked his watch. I need to get going, but Lily, promise me you'll call tomorrow. I promise. Good. He paused, then pulled out his wallet again. This time he handed her several more bills. This is from me personally. Not payment, not a tip. Just from one musician to another. Get yourself somewhere warm and safe tonight. Buy whatever you need, okay? Lily looked at the money. Another $100? She wanted to refuse, wanted to say it was too much. But the truth was she needed it desperately, and David's eyes told her that refusing would actually hurt him. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. For everything. After David and the band packed up and left after most of the customers had gone home, Lily sat back down at the piano one more time. The cafe was nearly empty now. Just Tony cleaning up behind the counter and a couple finishing their coffee in the corner. She played quietly, just for herself this time. Not a complicated piece or a showy one, just a simple melody, the kind her dad would play when she couldn't sleep, when she was little and scared of the dark. He'd sit at the piano and play until her eyes got heavy and the fear melted away. She wished he could see her now, wished he could know that his lessons hadn't been wasted, that all those hours spent teaching her had mattered, that his music was still alive in her fingers and her heart, in every note she played. When she finished, Tony was standing nearby with tears in his eyes. Your dad would be proud, he said softly, like he'd read her mind. I hope so, Lily whispered. I know so. Tony smiled. Same time next Tuesday? If you want to play here regularly, the stage is yours. I'll pay you. Not a lot, but something fair. Lily felt something crack open in her chest. Hope. Real hope. For the first time in so long. Yes? I'd really like that. She gathered her things, the to-go container of food, the money carefully folded in her pocket, David's business card held tight in her hand like a lifeline. As she walked toward the door, Tony called out to her, Hey, Lily, you got somewhere safe to go tonight? She thought about lying, but she was tired of lying. Not really, but I'll figure it out. I always do, Tony nodded slowly. Listen, I've got a daughter about your age. If she was out there alone, I'd hope someone would help her. There's a youth shelter 2 blocks north. They're good people. They'll give you a bed and breakfast, no questions asked. Will you go there? Lily hesitated, then nodded. Maybe it was time to stop being so proud. Maybe it was okay to accept help. Thank you, Tony, for everything. Thank you for the music, kid. You lit up this whole place tonight. As Lily stepped out into the night, the rain had finally stopped. The air smelled clean and fresh, like the world had been washed new. She looked up at the sky and saw a few stars peeking through the clouds. Tomorrow she'd call David. Tomorrow she'd practice at the community center. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to tell her mom about all of this. But tonight, she just walked toward the shelter with food in her bag, money in her pocket, and music still singing in her heart. Lily woke up the next morning in a real bed for the first time in weeks. The youth shelter had been everything Tony promised. Clean sheets, a warm room, and a breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast that she ate slowly, still not quite believing this was real. She called her mom first thing. The conversation was hard. Her mom cried when Lily told her the truth about where she'd been sleeping, about how bad things had gotten. But then Lily told her about the cafe, about the piano, about David and the scholarship possibility. Her mom cried harder, but different tears this time. I'm so sorry, baby, her mom kept saying. I should have known. I should have been there. You were working, Mom. You were doing everything you could. But things are going to get better now. I promise. And somehow saying it out loud made it feel true. Lily called David next. He answered on the second ring like he'd been waiting. Within an hour, they met at the community center. The director, a cheerful woman named Patricia, showed Lily to the rec room where an old upright piano stood against the wall. It's not fancy, Patricia said apologetically. Some of the keys stick a little, but to Lily it was perfect. She sat down and played a few scales, and even though the piano was old and slightly out of tune, it was real. It made actual sound. Her fingers pressed real keys instead of paper. She looked up at David with tears in her eyes. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. I think I do, David said gently. Now let's get to work. We have 3 weeks to prepare for your audition. Those 3 weeks changed everything. Every morning, Lily would practice at the community center for 3 hours. David came by several times to work with her, refining her technique, suggesting pieces for her audition. The rest of the time, she played at Romano's Cafe on Tuesday and Friday nights, and the crowds got bigger each week. But the biggest change came 4 days after that first night. Lily woke up to dozens of messages on the phone her mom had finally been able to get her. The video. The woman from the cafe had posted Lily's performance of her father's song online, and it had gone viral. By the time Lily checked, it had 3 million views. By the end of that day, it was up to 8 million. People were sharing it everywhere with comments that made Lily's heart ache in the best way. This made me cry at my desk at work. I haven't felt this moved by music in years. Who is this girl? Someone please give her a record deal. The emotion in this playing is unreal. You can feel every note. News outlets started reaching out. Local TV stations wanted interviews. A reporter from the city's biggest newspaper came to the cafe to watch her play and wrote a story that ran on the front page. The headline read, "From Paper Keys to Standing Ovations. The story of a girl who never stopped playing." With the attention came help. A local piano company offered to donate an upright piano to Lily and her mom. A charity that helped struggling families saw the article and paid to have the electricity turned back on in their apartment, plus covered 3 months of rent. People from all over the country sent donations, some as small as $5, others in the hundreds. "I don't understand," Lily said to her mom one evening, sitting in their apartment that was finally warm and bright again. "Why do all these people care?" Her mom put her arm around her. "Because your story matters, baby. Because people see themselves in you. Everyone knows what it's like to lose something precious. Everyone knows what it's like to struggle. But not everyone keeps fighting. Not everyone refuses to give up on what they love. You inspire people." The day of the audition arrived faster than Lily expected. She wore clothes that actually fit, donated by someone who'd seen her story. Her mom had taken the day off work to come with her. David met them at the conservatory, a beautiful old building with marble floors and high ceilings that made every sound echo. There were other students auditioning, kids with expensive instruments and designer clothes, parents who looked calm and confident. Lily felt out of place for a moment, like maybe she'd made a mistake thinking she belonged here. Then David squeezed her shoulder. "Remember, you've already done the hard part. You've already survived the worst. This is the easy part. Just play like you did that first night at the cafe. Play from your heart." When they called her name, Lily walked into the audition room. 5 judges sat behind a long table, their faces neutral and professional. A beautiful grand piano waited on the stage, polished and perfect. "Whenever you're ready," one of the judges said. Lily sat at the piano and took a deep breath. She'd prepared 3 pieces for this audition: the required classical piece, a technical showpiece to demonstrate her skills, and 1 piece of her own choosing. She started with Beethoven, her fingers steady and sure, then moved into a challenging Rachmaninoff piece that made 2 of the judges lean forward in their seats. But for her final piece, she played her father's song, the one he'd written when she was born, the one that had started everything. As she played, she thought about that rainy night outside the cafe. She thought about practicing on paper for 2 years, refusing to let the music die. She thought about her dad, and how he'd always believed in her even when she was too small to believe in herself. When she finished, one of the judges was wiping her eyes. Another was shaking his head in what looked like disbelief. The head judge, an older man with silver glasses, spoke first. "Miss Lily, in 30 years of conducting auditions, I have never heard anything quite like that. Your technical proficiency is excellent, but it's your emotional depth that's truly remarkable. You don't just play music, you make it breathe." 3 days later, the acceptance letter arrived. Full scholarship. All expenses covered. A stipend for books and materials, everything. Lily sat on her bed holding the letter and let herself cry. Her mom hugged her so tight she could barely breathe, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. But the story didn't end there. It had only just begun. 6 months later, Lily gave her first official recital at the conservatory. The concert hall was packed. Tony came, closing the cafe early so his whole staff could attend. Patricia from the community center was there. The woman who'd posted the video. The couple from the cafe who'd been eating pizza that first night. Dozens of people whose lives had been touched by her music. And in the front row, reserved and empty, was a single seat with a rose laid across it. For her dad, because even though he couldn't be there to see it, his music lived on, in every note she played, in every life she touched, in the girl who refused to give up, who practiced on paper when she had nothing else, who turned hunger and loss into something beautiful. Before she played, Lily stood at the microphone and looked out at the crowd. "I want to thank everyone who helped me get here. There are too many of you to name, but I especially want to thank my dad, who taught me that music isn't about the instrument you play, it's about what you carry in your heart. And I want to thank that rainy Tuesday night when I was hungry and cold and a stranger offered me kindness. That's when I learned that sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us exactly where we need to go. She sat at the piano, that beautiful grand piano that she could now play whenever she wanted. And as her fingers touched the keys, she smiled, because she wasn't that scared, hungry girl anymore. But she also was. She carried that girl with her, that strength and determination and refusal to quit. The music poured out of her, filling the concert hall with sound and emotion and life. And somewhere, she liked to think her dad was listening, proud, smiling, knowing that his greatest gift had survived everything and bloomed into something even more beautiful than he could have imagined. Years from now, when people asked Lily about how she became a famous pianist, she would always tell them about that rainy night at Romano's cafe, about a paper keyboard and a kind manager and a chance that changed everything. I was hungry that night, she'd say. Hungry for food, yes, but also hungry for hope, hungry for a chance, hungry to prove that losing everything doesn't mean you've lost what matters most. And someone gave me that chance. That's why I play now, not just for me or for my dad, but for every kid out there who's hungry and cold and holding on to a dream with everything they have. I play to remind them that dreams don't die. They just wait for the right moment to come alive. And every time she played, whether in concert halls or small cafes, she poured that same hunger into the music, that same determination, that same refusal to let the beautiful things die, because some gifts are too precious to give up on. Some music is too important to let fade into silence, and sometimes all it takes is one person offering kindness, one moment of courage, and one girl who refused to stop believing in the power of a dream.